Like any activity in life, it's all about preparation. So start this year with a review of your finances. 2021 is the year to make things happen, so let's do it together. At the Nottingham, along with our trusted partners, there's not much we can't help you with when it comes to financial planning. From independent financial advice and prepaid funeral plans to will writing and estate planning services, we've got it covered. So call your nearest branch today to arrange a free initial meeting to discuss your savings, pensions and investments.
Well, it's a brand new episode of the Nottingham Panthers Audio Experience, and I'm delighted to have on the show one of the voices of the Seattle Kraken, Everett Fitzhugh. Everett, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, man. This is a huge honor. I've had the privilege of doing a lot of interviews and speaking to a lot of people since getting hired here, but to be able to now be on the English airwaves overseas is definitely pretty cool. Thanks for having me.
I think I need to stop booking people in on the West Coast because it's like 8 p.m. here. So
it's like Kraken after dark. It's a little mysterious. We can have some fun with it. It's 11 o'clock in the morning right now, so I've already had a couple cups of coffee in my morning meeting. So I think we're on two different wavelengths, but it's all good.
you can bring me back up, is what you're saying. I like it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're good. We're good.
So. Obviously, being part of the Seattle Kraken, one of the initial voices of the franchise. Yeah. How much of a cool opportunity is that?
It's awesome. I've had the dream of getting to the NHL since I was in college, and to be able to achieve the NHL dream is awesome in itself. But to be able to say that you can do this with an expansion organization starting from the ground up, not a lot of people get to say that. And what the Kraken are doing, what we as an organization are doing here, is something that's never been done before. And you can look at other teams around the league who are more established. There's the potential of that if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of attitude. But with us, we're trying to really change the way that fans consume hockey and basketball and live events and all of that. So to be able to be a part of the organization from essentially the start is a really cool experience. And, I've said before, obviously to get to the NHL is a huge honor. And, there's 32 teams that at the drop of a hat, you would say, absolutely, let's do it. But I think the fact that it's Seattle, it's an expansion team, it's in a brand new market that hasn't had NHL hockey for over 100 years. I mean, I could not think of a better place to get that NHL gig and to start on that dream career path.
And you talk about Seattle, that's a city that loves sports. You've got the Seahawks, the Storm, the Mariners, and they really take to their athletes as well. People like Felix Hernandez, you've got Russell Wilson, you've got Sue Bird, Brianna Stewart, all in this city. You must be really excited to get into because you get to go straight into their head. You must be looking forward to that and the reception that they're going to have to that.
That was one of the first things I noticed when I moved here, is just how crazy and rabid and supportive and emotional these fans are here. I mean, from, like you said, you've got the Storm, who have won 4 championships. You've got the Sounders, who have been, a hot ticket since they came into the city. Obviously, the Seahawks, the Mariners, with their storied past and historic past and all of that. And, now they're starting to build a young, exciting roster. So sports here is huge. And not to mention, you've got a major Division I university in the University of Washington, just on the other side of downtown. So, you've got a lot of sports here and a lot of fans here. And when I was in July, when I came out here for my interview, my then fiance, we were looking at apartments and getting a lay of the land a little bit. And people were like, you're moving here at the right time. We have a brand new hockey team coming here. I don't know if you've heard that or not. And I was like, yeah, I may have heard a thing or two about it. Nah, it's really cool, interesting. So the fans are already excited for the NHL here. They've missed out. I think there were 3 other expansion windows over the last 40 or 50 years that Seattle's missed out on. So for them to finally be rewarded with the NHL, to get a winter sport back. Obviously, the Sonics left, however many years ago. So for them to be able to get an October through June sports back, that can bridge that gap between the NFL season and the MLB season is huge. And this town is already turning into a hockey town. Everywhere I go, every single day, there's Kraken swag and bumper stickers and license plate holders and all of that. So people are really excited, and I'm excited to be a part of that fan base and to see that fan base continue to grow.
And it's almost one of those, underrated sports cities in North America, isn't it? Because you hear like LA and like Boston and these people and these places, and then you actually look into it that Seattle is a huge sports town. I wish it's like almost like the Boston of the West Coast sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's because, we're so isolated up here in that corner. You've got Seattle, you've got Portland, and then just over the border, you've got Vancouver. So it's kind of, that I-5 line of cities there. But, the biggest thing that I've always heard is out here, especially when the Sonics were here, it was like, well, you've got Portland, you've got Seattle, you've got Vancouver, and then obviously Vancouver left, so then it was Portland and Seattle, and so they had that rivalry there. In baseball, I think Seattle's closest team is the Colorado Rockies, and they're in a different league, so they only play every few years. So people kind of forget about Seattle because it's so isolated up here. But this is a dynamite sports town, a dynamite sports area, and then not only just team sports. I mean, there is so much to do here outdoors. I mean, between hiking, between boating and fishing. I mean, this is a sports mecca. And you can throw in the big four, obviously the professional ranks, and then you throw in all of the outdoor sports, the non-team sports. There's so many golf courses up here. People don't know. I heard a stat. I'm going to get it wrong, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think Washington State has, I think, the third or fourth most golf courses than anywhere in the country. So, it's just amazing how much sport is here, how many options there are here, and now we get to add ourselves to that list.
Given the reputation of the weather in Seattle, the golf course thing does surprise me a little bit.
Okay. Well, you know what? So I'm going to set the record straight right now. Everyone, is always saying, well, it rains all the time in Seattle. And someone told me that it actually rains more in Cincinnati. So where I just came from, Cincinnati gets more rain every year than Seattle. But I think what gives Seattle that reputation, if it doesn't rain but for 5 or 10 minutes, it'll rain every day here. You know what I mean? Or it'll rain every other day here. So that's the thing. Now, having said that, in the winter months, it probably hasn't. It's not raining now. There you go. So that's good. Monday morning, it's not raining. It was raining over the weekend a little bit. So, but when it rains here, obviously it's dreary, but man, it's all worth it on those nice days, those sunny days. They tell me that the summer, there's no place on earth like Seattle in the summertime. So I came here to visit in the summer and it was beautiful. So I'm waiting and I'm anticipating, once the calendar turns to warmer weather to see it for myself.
I think one of the other things that plays into that, stereotype of the city is pop culture, because obviously Frasier was set in Seattle and it's always raining in Frasier.
That, and then Grey's Anatomy. I feel like I'm not the biggest Grey's Anatomy watcher, but I did watch a few episodes, and I feel like every episode I watch, it's always raining. And I'm like, man, does it do anything but rain in Seattle? And I had some family out here, so I'd been here before when I was younger. And my mom has been out here multiple times. And again, it's like, all it does is rain in Seattle. I'm like, it can't rain that much in Seattle. So I think Seattle gets a bad rep with all the rain. It doesn't rain that much, in terms of quantity, but frequency, I'll give you that.
How cool is it to see the Space Needle in person?
Awesome. So we actually shot a video. One of my first month on the job, we actually did a piece in conjunction with Amazon and the Climate Pledge, and we filmed part of it in the Space Needle. So we shut the Space Needle down for about 3 hours on a Tuesday morning. and I'm in the Space Needle by myself. And it's really, really cool. And, you know, you see pictures of it, but it doesn't do it justice. If you're here, you have to get to the Space Needle, go up top, go to the observation deck. I mean, and on a clear day, you can see Mount Rainier. Obviously, you can see downtown and you know, the beautiful city, but it is a very picturesque view up there. I kind of liken it to going, you know, to the top of the Empire State Building, right? Like you can just see for miles around, and the view is gorgeous. So it's really, really cool. Seattle as a city is just growing, man. There are probably 8 or 9 like high-rise cranes downtown right now working on buildings. So like I feel like the Space Needle here in about 10 years is going to be dwarfed by just everything that's coming up in the city.
Now, you mentioned a minute ago that you always wanted to make it to the NHL when you were in college. So when did you fall in love with ice hockey?
So I was actually, you know, I've always been a hockey fan. Being from Detroit, over here we call Detroit Hockey Town because, you know, they had their Stanley Cups in the 90s, 25 years of making the playoffs, 25 straight years of making the playoffs, and that just ended last year, 2 years ago, I think. You know, so Detroit, and then not to mention you've got Michigan State and University of Michigan, tons of youth hockey. So Detroit is hockey town. So, you know, being from there when you're growing up, you can't help but be a hockey fan. So I've always been a hockey fan. I became, I guess, a diehard hockey fan when I was in the 3rd grade, actually. And I saw the first time I saw 2 black players on the same team. And that was huge for me because, you know, hockey is historically been dominated by white men. So to see as a 9-year-old two faces who look like you playing ice hockey, you're like, whoa, this is pretty cool. So that's kind of when I became a hockey fan. And I got to college. And I always knew that I wanted to work in sports. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't even know play-by-play was an option. So a buddy of mine dragged me off the couch one day to a student radio organization meeting. And, you know, I did my first hockey game my freshman year. And that's when I fell in love with it. The broadcasting, the media world, you know, just putting all of that together. And then I called my mom and I was like, hey, so we're going to put all of our eggs in the hockey basket here. So most parents are like, why aren't you a doctor or a lawyer? Don't you want to become president? Nope. I want to be a hockey broadcaster. This was going to happen. And she was very supportive and, you know, and obviously as mothers are. So yeah, so this was the first goal professionally that I ever set for myself when I was 18 years old. I said, I'm going to get to the NHL, and, you know, come hell or high water, I'm going to make it happen. So to be able to see that dream come true and to see it through has been awesome.
And there's quite a lofty goal to set because there are less spots for commentators than actual players. You have more chance of being a player in the NHL than a commentator. And is that a case of, you know, aim for the moon and you could land within the stars sort of thing?
Well, you know, I knew I wasn't going to play. So I figured.
Same.
Exactly. I actually didn't. I'm probably going to get myself in trouble, but I actually didn't even learn how to skate until I was 22, 21. I was in college, actually. My last year in college, I had to fill out my workload to be a full-time student. And I took a couple of extracurricular classes, and ice skating was one of them. So, but yeah, you know, I actually read an article earlier last year that said you have a higher chance of becoming a player in the NHL than you do a broadcaster. So, you know, it was a very, very lofty goal. Obviously, there's other avenues within that. There's PR, there's content, there's marketing, you know, and I've been very fortunate to do all of that in my professional career, but broadcasting has always been the passion. Play-by-play has always been the passion. And, you know, I know it sounds very cliche, so I apologize. But if it's something that you believe in, and you're gonna do what it takes to get there. And I'd be lying to you if I said the road was easy. It was not easy. There were a lot of long nights, a lot of poor nights. There were a lot of depressing nights when I'm like, man, should I just give up and go to another career? This isn't working out. But you use that as motivation. And, I understand that this road does come with a lot of its challenges. I've had a ton of fun doing this as well. So yeah, it was a pretty lofty goal, but I always said NHL by 40, and to be able to do it when I turned 31, I was not a chance, no way this is happening. But it was definitely, top moment of my life, professionally anyway, when I got that call that I'd been offered the job here.
And who are your, usually players talk about role models and things like, who are your role models as broadcasters that you were looking up to? The obvious one is Doc Emerick.
Yeah.
Who are the guys that you look up to as you're on this path?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, honestly. Going back to college, I actually, what I do every single year is I try to listen to every broadcaster in the NHL at least twice. And, maybe not a full game, but, I'll tune into the Rangers Hurricanes game, and I'll listen to a period of a guy, and, just to see how they're doing things. And they're in the NHL. They're where you want to be. So why not listen to them, and why not take what you can from them? You said it. Doc Emerick is considered by many the gold standard of broadcasting. Growing up in Detroit with Windsor right over the border, I was fortunate enough to have CBC. So I got to watch a lot of Hockey Night in Canada. So I got to see a lot of the Canadian broadcasters. Jim Hewson, who I'm a huge fan of Jim Hewson's. Obviously Bob Cole and Harry Neal, those guys, and then Chris Cuthbert. But then the NHL guys now, a lot of younger guys that have just come into the league over the past 5 to 10 years. Derek Wills in Calgary. You've got Brendan Burke, the young wonder kid in LA, and Alex Faust, and so many great broadcasters in the NHL. And again, they're there for a reason. They made it to this level because they're the best 31 men on the face of the planet doing what they do. So there's so many that I can name, but I would have to go with those that I mentioned. Then obviously the guy we just hired, John Forslund, he's another one that I've listened to quite a bit, and I've been a fan of his work for a long time. And I told folks, I said, I feel like I'm gambling, I'm playing with house money here, because I have an opportunity to learn from one of the best and travel with him and pick his brain every day. So that's really cool as well.
Has that picking of the brain already started since he got hired then?
We've had a couple of conversations. He's still doing his national work with NBC, but we have had a couple of conversations, and I don't want to inundate him too much, but there's going to come a time when, I'm going to say, all right, John, here, I'll buy you a couple of beers. We're going to sit down and just hash everything out. I want to know this, and this. So I'm trying to keep my crazy under control as long as I can, but that day will definitely come for sure.
You mentioned you like to listen to each commentator twice, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But what was your process for learning how to do it yourself? Because I don't imagine there's a class in play-by-play commentating for ice hockey. I remember listening to an interview that Doc did once where he said he'd just go to his local rink with a little recorder and sit in a corner and do it himself. What was your process for learning the trade sort of thing?
Honestly, that's it. And it's funny. So that story about Doc Emerick is 100% true. And it was in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And I've been in that building multiple times. And, the Cincinnati and Fort Wayne were big rivals. And everybody who works for the Fort Wayne Comets, will tell you, that's where Doc used to sit, right up there in that corner, calling a game in his recorder. So, it's a legend around the Allen County War Memorial Coliseum. But, you said it, there's no class for this. There's no book on broadcasting a game. I think that you listen to the best and you try and take ideas and you take hints and different pieces of what they do. You go back and listen to yourself. I hate the sound of my voice, even though I never shut up, which is kind of counterintuitive, I think. But, going back and listening to your broadcast and seeing what you can improve on is a huge step. And then you talk to people who are in that position. And the one thing that I've found is that if people didn't want to be reached out to, if they didn't want you to, to talk to them, they wouldn't give you their business card. They wouldn't offer to help you. So I've always taken people's offers to help to heart. I've sent demos and resumes to people and say, listen, I would love for you to listen to this. Let me know where I can improve, what you think. And I've gotten some good feedback over the course of my career from a lot of NHL guys, a lot of American Hockey League guys, a lot of ECHL guys before I got there. So yeah, there's no class. I think some of it comes naturally, but also you do have to work at it. You do have to, every day find ways to get better. And I think it helps when you're in season and you can just kind of get that repetition every single day. But some guys, they have everyone's got their own process. And I think for me, it's just a matter of listening back, picking as many brains as I can. There have been times when I didn't have a good game yesterday, so I'll go to morning skate. I'll go to practice tomorrow and I'll just sit up in the press box and announce practice. And, just as a way of getting the cobwebs out or whatever the case may be. So everyone's process is different. And you've got 64 broadcasters around the league, 64 different processes of how they continue to practice and hone in on their craft.
And then when you're making notes for a game, I've seen pictures of commentators who make notes for a game. Are you a handwritten guy or a type it up and print it out guy?
I'm a little bit of both, actually. So I've got, I've got the stat pack there. I've got the line chart there. And then if I'm going through the opposing team, I'll make a few headers and I'll write a few notes down. But, I think Jack Edwards in Boston is probably the one who everybody looks at as his prep is insane. And he's got the manila folder with both sides on it. And it looks like chicken scratch, but it works for him. There's a couple of guys in the ECHL that I knew that did that. And one guy was like, hey, I decided to type my notes up for the first time. And he sent me, it's almost like a scroll. And I was like, buddy, what is this? So I tried it once and I was like, it wasn't for me, but I do a little bit of a mix. And also I find that if I try to write so much out, I'm going to want to get every single one of those points in. And then it just sounds, it sounds off when I do it. Again, other people, it sounds great and they're able to seamlessly work that in. So I don't go to that extreme, but I do kind of have a little bit of a happy medium with both.
And obviously hockey is such a fast-paced game that when you're calling it, by the time you've said something's already happened.
Yep.
So is it a case of like, do you have to try and read the play ahead of time to be able to keep up with this, to keep the commentary current sort of thing?
Yeah, anticipation, I think, is a huge part of it. And that comes from learning and knowing minimally at least your team, right? Because you see these guys in practice every single day. So when player A and player B are coming up the ice at the same time, they've worked on that cross ice pass 1,000 times. So you can probably guess that, all right, look out for player B to get the puck on the back door, something like that. But anticipation is huge, and it is so fast that you're right. I just said something and now we're back down the ice and what I just said doesn't matter anymore. So you do have to anticipate. I think that was, the difference between the NHL and minor league hockey is that the NHL is a much faster game, but because they're the best at what they do, from a broadcast perspective, it actually slows down a bit. And I did a preseason game a couple of years ago with Washington and Boston, And I remember thinking to myself, this is a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. And that's when I figured out, oh, that's because I've got Nick Backstrom and Lars Eller and Braden Holtby and like some of the best players in the world right in front of me. And, you know, Nick Backstrom's made that play a million times this week. You know what I mean? So it's really, really cool to see that difference in play. But, you know, I've missed some calls and we've all blown calls, and, you know, you just got to sell it like there's no tomorrow. And I can tell you some stories about, you know, some goal calls in Cincinnati. Is like, oh, he shoots and scores, so-and-so, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then, you know, 10 seconds later, you know, Cyclones goal scored by number 10, you know, Jason Williams. And I'm like, ooh, all right, I blew that one. All right. So, and then the thing is, you don't let it get to you. You know, you don't overthink it. There was one call that I just completely massacred. It was a highlight reel goal too. I massacred it, and it was all over ESPN and all over the internet. So for about a week, what the hell is this guy talking about? Get him off the radio. And you're just sitting there just like, oh. You just want to hide and run away. So, but again, that's just how fast the game is.
Well, it's one of those things, like if you do that in the middle of a game, you can't stop commentating. You know, like a play, you can't get benched for 5 minutes for making a mistake. You have to just roll with it.
And you have to pray that enough people didn't hear it, because there's always gonna be that guy, right? Everyone listening, you know, there's that guy who's gonna listen and, well, you know, you said something. Fine. But because, you know, you say 100,000 words a game, you're going to mess up a few of them, right? But yeah, I think that's the thing. You know, as long as you, what's the line from Anchorman? 60% of the time it works 100% of the time. So as long as you're batting over 500, no, yeah, obviously you want to try and get it right every single time. But, you know, I think the best broadcasters are the ones who, when they do make the mistakes, they just keep going. Or, you know, sometimes you'll hear it and then they're like, wait a minute, did he just say, but he's already forgotten about it. And he's pulled his Jedi mind trick over you and is like, nope, I didn't say that. You heard wrong. So again, you're going to mess up, you're going to slip up, but that's part of the game. And I've talked to a number of NHL broadcasters who are like, listen, people freak out all the time about getting it perfect all the time. You're going to mess up. You're going to miss a few things. That's fine. That's okay. It happens. And I think that's a huge piece of advice that I've gotten is don't dwell on those mistakes. You know, you are your harshest critic. So just let it go and move on.
And one of the cool things I've been involved in the media side of things for a pro sports team is that you do get engagement with players and coaches, and you get to have conversations with them, you know, pre-game for anecdotes and things like that. And obviously for someone who, like you mentioned, a diehard Red Wings fan, that must be such a thrill to have those conversations with those people.
Yeah, it was, it's been very, very cool. And, you know, even when I was in Cincinnati or my other stops that I've been at, I've had the privilege of working with NHL folks and media folks. And, you know, for me, everybody, their hero, I want to meet Michael Jordan. I want to meet Sidney Crosby or Wayne Rooney or whatever. For me, like, oh, I want to meet this broadcaster. So when I meet this writer or when I meet this, you know, this hockey media person, that's my, like, oh wow, hey, nice to meet you. So I've been very, very fortunate, but you're right, being able to talk to a lot of these broadcasters who I've listened to for years and people that I've looked up to, and you try to emulate and all of that, to now be able to say that these are my colleagues, these are people that I work with, I'm going to see these people on a regular basis, you know, it is really, really cool. And there's an old saying, you know, no cheering in the press box, and act like you've been there before. And, you know, I think that's helped, because when I meet these guys, you know, externally, it's like, oh, hey, Bill, hey, Jim. But inside, I'm like, this is the guy. So you get excited, but you have to kind of mask it. But no, it's really, really cool to have been able to talk to a lot of these guys so far, and just to hear words of encouragement and wisdom from them.
like I mentioned to you earlier, Chris Stewart came to play for us. And I've been watching NHL for years, and he's walking down the corridor. Like you say, don't cheer from the press box. He walked past me and he goes, "Oh, hi, Dan." I was like, "Hi, Chris." And I was like, as he'd gone past, I was like, "Oh my God, Chris Stewart knows my name."
Yep. Yeah. And that's so cool, though. That's so cool.
Like, and then the other one was, I had to ask him to do something on like his first day with the team. I'm like, I'm like, how can I do this? I went, "Chris, can I just borrow you for 1 second, please? If it's not too much trouble." He goes, "Hey, I just work here. You tell me what to do." I'm like, "Oh my, okay."
All right. You sure? Like,
really? Are you okay? Do you have 10 seconds to do this thing?
Well, it's funny too, because, again, we spend so much time, athletes and actors and singers and all of the famous people, right? We look up to them so much. And then I think it always surprises us. And when I say us, I mean the royal we, right? It always surprises us that, oh, he's a normal guy like me. I'm expecting him to want Fiji water and all blue M&Ms and, white leather couches in his dressing room. But no, he's an actual down to earth guy. So I think we always kind of get fooled or surprised by that when you meet someone, and then it's like, oh, you're a cool guy. So,
and one of the cool things about it all is that when you get to know these people, you get to talk to them and find out, and then you're responsible for telling their story, sort of thing. Is that something you take great pride in, telling someone's story?
Yeah, I do. I definitely do, because not only from a play-by-play standpoint, or in a broadcasting standpoint, when you're telling stories on the air, but if you're doing a feature piece, if you're writing an article, there is a lot of trust that goes in there, because at the end of the day, you don't know me. You don't have any reason to trust me. So for you to put your story in my hands, to interview you about it, to write about it, to talk about it, I think it's a huge honor. And I think that it's something that sometimes goes unnoticed by the larger public, by the larger group. That's why a guy like Bob Costas is so good at what he does. Tom Rinaldi is so good at what he does. A lot of these sports media figures who tell these stories, it's because they're so good at it, and they're so good at earning the trust of the people who the story belongs to. And I think for me, that's so important, because you only have that one opportunity to tell that story the first time. You mess it up, yeah, sure, you can go back and retell it, or you can have another kick at the can down the road, but that first story, that first interview is huge. So I've actually been working with a few folks out here just to kind of, round and shape my game from a broadcasting perspective, and interviewing and storytelling is a huge piece of that. So I think it's massively important to be able to properly tell someone's story, to interview well, to write well, because like I said, they've got no reason to trust you. So you have to do what you can to earn that trust and tell their story and tell that story well.
Well, you mentioned that you broke into professional hockey with the Cincinnati Cyclones.
Yeah.
How did that opportunity come around?
So in this industry, I'm sure, as you know, it's a very, very small world, and sometimes it's not about who you know, or what you know, but who you know. I was very, very fortunate. So the outgoing broadcaster in Cincinnati knew one of my good friends, the broadcaster that I took over for in college. So he graduated, he went on to pro hockey. So I slid into the play-by-play chair in college, and him and I kept in touch. And he was in Orlando at the time, and I got a phone call, and it said, "Hey, Everett, Nick in Cincinnati is leaving, and there's an opening there if you're interested. I've already given him your name, and the GM is expecting your stuff." And I was like, okay. I was on my lunch break, so I had to run home, grab my flash drive with my resume on it, and I had to polish it up and sent it off. And it was that little note that helped me get the job in Cincinnati. So I interviewed for it, and then it was a pretty quick process. So I got hired. I think I applied for the job maybe early May. And then I was on my way to Cincy by mid-June. So it was pretty quick. It was pretty quick, but that's how that all came to be.
And as we were talking about earlier, the working in the coast comes with the same kind of things that working in the EIHL does. mastering different tasks. You were also the director of media relations when you were there. How did you find balancing all those roles?
I mean, short answer, because I had to. Like, if I didn't, I was going to get fired. No, it was that's the nature of the beast. As you know, with the English League, you wear multiple hats. Director of public relations. I was the play-by-play announcer. I did marketing. I did social media for 4 of my 5 years. I did team services, so all of our travel, I booked hotels and buses and schedules and all of that. I was the mascot once, so it's an all hands on deck mentality when you're in the minors, and I think it makes it more fun, and that actually is something that I had to learn. When I was in college, all I did was broadcasting. That's all I did was play-by-play. I didn't realize there was the other responsibilities, right? You know, that famous line in every job description, other duties as assigned. Yeah, I didn't know there were other duties as assigned other than broadcasting. So I had to learn through my previous positions, whether it was in the USHL league office or in Youngstown, how to write a press release, how to conduct a press conference, marketing techniques and social media and digital. I mean, all this stuff has taken off in the last 10 years. And I had to learn all that because I didn't know a lot of it coming out of college. So I think that was huge. And then obviously Cincinnati, a major market over here, being able to run a minor league hockey PR department in a major city with an NFL team, the first Major League Baseball team, a brand new soccer team, and then 2 big colleges, trying to find your way in that crowded landscape was a challenge, but it was something that I think, because I was able to do it so effectively, helped me get this position here in Seattle. So you wear a lot of hats, a lot of long days. I think the typical game day for me, I'd get to the rink about 9 a.m. And if I left by midnight, that was a good day. I was flying that day. So usually I'm out of there at 1, and then I got to come back in 8 hours and do it again. So
I've always managed to avoid being the mascot, because I just tell them it'll mess my hair up and I can't deal with it.
Well, so it's funny you say that, because I'm 6'3", so I'm tall, and a lot of the mascots that we've had have been shorter, under 6 feet or whatever. So when I've had to fill in, either in Cincy was only the one time, but I did it in Youngstown a couple of times, and the mascot in Youngstown was like 5'7". And so here you have this 6'3" dragon coming out, and people are like, I'm terrifying little children, and it's it was bad. It was bad. So, and like people love the mascot, and I never knew how much fans loved mascots until I got to Cincinnati, and we would have fans like, oh, that's not the real Twister. Someone else is playing him. He doesn't have the same moves, or he doesn't walk like that. That's somebody else. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? So yeah, when there was one time I was a mascot, and they're like, he's too tall. I wonder who that guy is. Hey.
we had that exact situation at a playoff weekend. Our normal guy wasn't available, so we had a replacement, and everyone was like sending tweets and going, "Who's this imposter?" Like, his paws.
Yeah, and again, the mascot is as indelible and as much of a fan favorite as the players are. Maybe even more so. Because people love the mascot, which is fine, which is great. I love it, but I've always found that kind of funny.
So when you're working in the coast, the road trips in the coast are well known. Are you going on road trips with the team at that point, or are you doing everything like digitally? Because
no, I travel with the team. So we got a 6.5 hour bus ride to Kalamazoo, or 23 hours down to Florida. I'm on the bus right there with them. So I travel everywhere. Like I said, when I was in Cincy, I was responsible for the travel arrangements. So I had to be first off the bus to make sure the hotel keys were set, make sure the meals all set up and ready to go. So again, a lot of hats you have to wear, but those road trips, we do travel in style. We did travel in style. We have had the sleeper buses, like those concert tour buses, kind of with the multiple bunks in them. So yeah, we flew if it was Idaho or Alaska. But other than that, I've done 17 hours to Texas. I did 23 hours to Florida. We got caught in a bad storm one time. So 9 hours to Reading, Pennsylvania. And then what was supposed to be 4.5 to Connecticut ended up taking about another 16 because of the snow. So we're just sitting there. I've heard tales of people getting stuck out west on a, Wyoming highway because the snow was piled up so high and they're off on the side of the road for 20 hours waiting for the plows to come. It's fun. It was fun. It was definitely some fun.
And people think these hockey road trips are really exciting. But when you go on them, it's just a lot of people either listening to music, doing their own thing, playing cards, or sleeping. Yep. And that's it. And people don't believe you when you tell them that.
Yes, that is it. You have a lot of downtime. And so we were lucky enough to have satellite TV, but it's always on NHL Network. You might watch a movie, maybe, but you're right. There's people in their bunks, sleeping, talking. You can get through Oprah Winfrey's book list, on one road trip. And like, I wish I read more. And like, my wife gets on me all the time because, she can polish a book off in a night. And I think I started a book 4 years ago and I'm on chapter 2. So like, I wish I read more, but I need to read more. But I think, they're exciting because you're around the guys and, it's not your typical work day in the office, but, for a fan, yeah, it's so cool. You're on the bus. Blah, blah. But as someone who has spent hours on a bus, I can tell you, like, it's not that great. Like after a while, after the first couple of hours, you're like, how much longer do we have? Oh, about 6 more hours. Okay, well, good thing I brought my phone charger. I've also make sure you bring a long enough charge cord. I've had to buy like multiple 10-foot charge cords because where you sit on the bus, there may not be an outlet near you. So like I've had to like drape and dangle my cord like through legs and around people because my phone was going to die. So yeah, it's a lot of stuff like that.
And also, if a player's phone is not charged and they forgot their charger, as a not player, you have to give them your charger.
Yes, 100%. And even as the media guy, like, I need this. I don't care. Give me your phone charger, buddy. Like, I need it. Okay, fine. Here. So yeah,
there's a hierarchy on that bus.
Exactly.
And there's some great pictures of you calling games where there's this special where you like got your fist pumping. Have you always had that, the passion of your commentary obviously translate through that picture? Have you always had that passionate style?
That's it. That picture is me in a nutshell. And I tell folks all the time, there really isn't. There's 2 things that are always constant with me: my energy and my volume. And you're gonna get both when it comes to broadcasting. So I have fun when I'm on the air. I genuinely enjoy it. And your job as a radio announcer is to bring the fans into the game. So again, another cliche, but you're like a painter. You have a blank canvas and I have to paint that picture for you. So if I'm just like, and the puck comes down the ice and it's bad, if it's just very monotone and boring, you're not going to want to listen to it because, I can just turn the TV on or I'll go to the game. So your job is to bring that listener into the game. And that's something that I take huge pride in being that person, that energetic, high energy person. And obviously there's a time and a place, like, you're not going to call a dump into the zone like you would a Stanley Cup clinching goal, but you want to make sure that it's exciting, it's entertaining, and the fan feels like they are right there in the building.
If you had to look back at your time in the Coast, what would be the favorite moment that you called? What was your favorite call from your time in the Coast?
Oh my goodness, there was so many, so many. So teddy bear toss. I loved our teddy bear toss nights, and
we didn't score at our last one.
We were the visiting team, and we shut them out like 6-0. And like and like you start to wonder out loud, like, I wonder if maybe, we'd give up a goal just to we did it. So after the game, it's like final score, Cincinnati 6, Kalamazoo nothing. All right, fans, toss those teddy bears. And people are like,
We did it worse than that. We did it with 10 minutes to go in the game. So it was like we'd given up on the team scoring. And the bears are being thrown, everyone's booing, and we're like, oh my God.
Oh my goodness, it's so embarrassing. So I think my I always love our teddy bear toss nights. And I think my favorite call, it was my first year in Cincinnati, and someone brought up an idea of like, hey, you should like do a funny goal call, or like a bear related goal call. And I was like, all right, I can maybe come up with something. So we score the goal, and I went full Yogi Bear, and it was like, he scores! Hey, boo-boo, looks like there was some bears in that picnic basket. It's teddy bear time! It just rolled off the tongue, and like the entire time you're thinking, don't screw it up, don't screw it up, don't screw it up. And I finally got it out, and like I had the biggest sigh of relief when it came out, because I was like, all right, I didn't screw it up. We can move on now. So I think that was probably my favorite goal call. But again, there's so many that I can go back to, and moments that I can go back to. But that's the one I think that just in my mind sticks out.
And how like photographic is your memory with moments that you see? Because like I can't remember what I did last week, but I can talk you through any hockey game that I've seen. You tell me about it. How does your memory work with, like, can you just recall things that you've seen in games, or does it go for you?
It comes and goes. The big moments, obviously, I remember. So like I remember big goals. I remember big games. If you were to tell me, hey, what happened in the February 12th game, 2016, I'm like, I don't know. But if it was our cancer night game or Pink in the Rink night game, and I maybe saw a picture or something, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that game. So and so had. So it just kind of all depends, but I remember the big moments. I remember the big goals when Cincy won we've had a couple of milestones. Jesse Schultz, who played in the EIHL for a few years, or for a few games, I should say, he had his 1,000th professional hockey game. I remember that day. And I think in that game, he scored 4 points in that game. So we had a huge game, and everyone was so happy and proud of him. When he scored his 900th pro point, he had, I think, 4 assists in that game as well. So I remember some of those big moments. I remember a playoff game one time when we went to 3 consecutive double overtime games after losing 8-0 in game 2. So we lost 8-0, and then the next 3 games each went to double overtime. We lost 2, won one of those. I remember a couple years back, we were in Maine, and Brady Vale scored a first period hat trick, and we ended up beating them 8-0. And then when we scored the 7th goal, it was he shoots and scores, touchdown Cyclones, and the home broadcaster was right next to me. So you listen to his highlight of the game. He's obviously very ticked off. He's like, and they score. And then you can hear in the background, touchdown Cyclones. So yeah, I remember moments like that, obviously. But it all depends.
Is it one of those things where, as you grew up in Detroit, you weren't a fan of the Cincinnati Cyclones. When you worked there, do you become a fan of the team?
You do. I think you do. And it's easy to say, like, I'm not a fan. They just sign my paycheck. So whoever pays me, that's who I'm going to be a fan of. And I think there is some truth to that. But obviously you work for the team, and you can't help but not get excited. You can't help but not be a fan of that team. And, there's a fine line. And I think good broadcasters can walk that line very, very well. But, obviously I'd never heard of the Cyclones when I was a kid. I didn't know who the Cyclones were. As I got into college and you start paying attention to potential, potential broadcasting jobs and openings that may open up, you get to know the hockey landscape and you get to know what's out there. So I'd heard of the Cyclones, but until they hired me, I had no reason to be a fan. But then once you're there, you're so invested in the team. You're a big piece of what makes that team operate. So, it's more, I think it's less maybe of being a fan and more so just being proud and taking pride in the work that you're doing for the team. So, to say that I'm a fan of the Cyclones, yeah, because they obviously helped me get to this point. But I think it's more so pride of having been able to play a small part in their history and to help them in multiple areas and to be a part of the organization.
And when you're obviously there, you see like the Vegas Golden Knights come to life. When you see that the NHL is expanding and how these look at these plans to expand franchises, does that give you like the twinkle, like, that could be a route in there?
Yeah, it always is. And, I would be lying to you if I told you that I didn't apply for that job. I think everybody did. So, every time a new job opens up, you send your resume in. And if your supervisor and if your bosses know that, hey, we're a minor league franchise, we want our players to move up to better things and we want our staff to move up to better things. And my bosses in Cincinnati were so understanding and so helpful. And I didn't fear telling them that I applied for a job because I knew they would support me. So when Vegas opened up, when 5 AHL jobs opened up a few years back, I applied for those jobs because they understood that, Cincinnati's been great to me, but they know that I want to get to the NHL. So yeah, when Vegas popped open, I definitely applied for the job. When Seattle was first announced, long before they contacted me, I found the info at NHL Seattle email. And again, myself, along with 1,000 other people, probably sent emails and resumes and all of that. So you have to shoot your shot whenever you can.
I think one of the things that, if this story is true that I've read online, and I've learned from doing this show that you can't trust everything you see on Wikipedia. But you
just doing this show is when you learn it.
Yeah, because then you actually have to deal with the consequences of the fact that you spew. And then they look at you and say, that's not true. I'm like, I had this great point to make and now I haven't.
Yeah.
Okay, so according to Wikipedia, you had quite the recommendation to the Seattle Kraken. It came from Doc.
That's what I've heard. I don't know the content of this recommendation. I don't know what was said during this conversation, but Todd and a few other people have told me that it was a rather nice recommendation from Doc Emerick. Yes.
So what goes into the interview process for an NHL commentator? Do you have to call a game for like that? Do they give you a game to call you, or is it a case of sending them your highlight reel type thing? How does that work?
You send them a demo reel, a highlight reel, obviously a resume. For this position, because it was so broadcast focused, it was so content heavy, I sent them a few examples of pregame shows that I'd done, video stand-ups that I'd done. And just because I'd been the PR person for so long, I sent a couple of press releases, a couple of sets of game notes. So you pretty much send a portfolio of everything you've done. And then if there's areas that will overlap, it's a pretty good example of what they can expect. So I sent my play-by-play reel, I sent a couple of videos along. I sent over a couple of game recaps, a couple of press releases. So that's what went into the interview process once it started. And then it was a few Zoom meetings, a few Zoom calls, and then an in-person interview, which they flew me and my fiance out, and I got to meet everyone here firsthand and in person, and it was amazing to see what they had in the works then. This was back in July, and then I got the official call mid-July.
And you get that official call. Talk me through your emotions when you get that call.
You know, it was so cool. It was so amazing. And I think the first emotion that I felt was relief. And not because it was over, the process was over and I could finally, but I think it was because you look back on your journey and your path of where you're going, and you see all of those hard moments and those tough moments, and you're like, okay, it was worth it. It was all worth it. It paid off in the end. And I think that was that weight had been lifted off of me in terms of, okay, when you were living in Chicago making, under $30,000 and your lights get cut off for the third time, like, all right, it was worth it. This was all worth it. So that was the first emotion. And then after that, I turned to my fiance and I kind of had that holy beep moment. Like, we did it. Like, I'm in the NHL. Like, I did it. Like, it was, you're kind of, is this real? Like, once it hits you. And honestly, man, I still don't think it's fully hit me that I'm in the NHL. I still have those holy wow moments that, I don't think you ever get used to it. I don't think you ever get tired of it. I still have moments that give me goosebumps. I still have moments that are just so cool. The people that I get to talk to and that I've met, and it's like, oh, wow, do you know who you are? I know who you are. I don't know if you know who you are. So this is really cool to be talking to someone like, you know what I mean? So I still have those moments from time to time.
And one of the really cool things that comes along with that is that you are, when you get that job, you are the first Black play-by-play commentator in NHL history. And I saw an interview you did that said that you don't set out to be a trailblazer, which I thought was a great quote. So how do you deal with when that sort of honor, that sort of responsibility is bestowed upon you?
You know what? It's something that I think you owe it to yourself. You owe it to the culture. You owe it to that next generation to be that role model. And you're right. Like, I don't think anyone ever sets out to be the first or to be the trailblazer. You know what I mean? But if you do find yourself in that position, you have no choice but to run with it. And I tell folks all the time, I didn't have a whole lot of positive Black influences in hockey when I was a kid. There were a few Black players that I looked up to, but there was no Black media members in hockey. There weren't people that I could look up to in this game. But when I saw Mike Greer and George LaRock and Anson Carter and Jerome McGinley and Kevin Weeks, when I saw those players for the first time, it told me that, okay, there is a place for me in this game. There is room for me in this game. And I think that's huge. And to be able to now potentially play that role for the next broadcaster, the next media member, the next hockey fan, you don't even have to want to work in this sport. But if you're just looking for a reason to become a fan of hockey, if I can serve you in that capacity and helping that along and doing whatever I can to get more minorities, more women, more historically underrepresented communities involved in the game, then I'll do whatever I can to help to make sure that gets done.
It's one of those things, like the expression is, if you can see it, you can be it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's the huge part of it all.
And you're right. If you have that person to look up to, and if there's someone you can look up to and say, well, he got there, so I can get there. She got there, I can get there. to be that person is a huge responsibility. It's something that's definitely not lost on me. I've already had a couple of aspiring broadcasters who I had no idea were out there, but they've said that, Everett, I was inspired by your story, and you've actually helped me realize that, okay, I can do this. And there's a couple of broadcasters in the college level that I've gotten to talk to that, have started becoming more serious about working in hockey and being in this role because they followed me in my career. And again, it's something that you never intend for it to happen, but it's a huge honor to be able to be in this position to help that next generation along.
And you mentioned, like, obviously from the start, you mentioned your goal was to make the NHL.
Yep.
Now you have that trailblazer aspect of it. Does that help? Because sometimes when people meet their life goal, it can take the fire away. Does that help? You don't seem like that kind of guy. I think you would have had the fire anyway. But you know what I mean? Like that can help you maintain that because it gives you another purpose after you've achieved your goal, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think so. I honestly do. And I always love to look at a guy like LeBron James or Michael Jordan. You've got a Hall of Fame career. You've won championships. You've won. You're at the top of your mountain. Like, where do you go from here? And I think it would be easy for me to say, well, I'm in the NHL now. All right, that's it. I'll kick my heels up and ride off into the sunset. But you're right. That's not the kind of person that I am. I've never been that kind of person. And, my purpose obviously is going to always to continue to get better. Even though I'm in the NHL, I still work and I still train and I still practice and I still every day try to find ways to get better. You always want to find ways to get better. But you're right. Being able to help mentor and tutor and talk to other broadcasters and that younger generation, that next crop coming up, I think it's huge. It does provide you with a little bit of an extra fire to get things done, because even though directly you might not be involved with them, you never know who's watching. And for me, putting on the best broadcast I can every single night, presenting myself in an appropriate manner in public, on team facing things, whatever the case may be, carrying myself in an appropriate and professional manner. That's huge. That's big, because you never know who's going to watch. You never know who's looking at you. So I think being able to continue to get better in that regard and to continue to grow and lead by example is something that never stops. And if you're leading by example, you're obviously working on yourself and you're obviously trying to find ways to get better. So even though I'm in the NHL, the work doesn't stop. It gets harder. It gets more important. It gets bigger. The road now is I'm at the beginning of a new road. The last chapter is over. I'm at the end of that road, but now I'm at the beginning of another, hopefully very long, successful, and fruitful road and journey here.
And when you getting ready for that first goal, I'm guessing there are a few games mentally you have circled on a calendar.
Yep.
Sort of thing. What are those games you have circled on the calendar?
Obviously, opening night here. The first Kraken game, I don't know if it's going to be on the road or at home, but the first Kraken game is obviously huge. And then the first home game, I think that's even bigger. Opening up the brand new arena and playing it on home ice and in front of our fans for the first time. That's massive. And then after that, it's going to be my first trip back home. The first Red Wings game in Detroit, that's going to be huge. My mom's already said that I'm going to need to get like 25 tickets, on the list for family and friends. So we'll do that. Growing up as an Edmonton Oilers fan, I think going to Edmonton for the first time is going to be huge. Montreal, you hear all the stories about going to Bell Center and all of the crowds and the noise and the raucousness. I'm looking forward to that. And then I think Madison Square Garden in New York, because it's MSG. It's the biggest arena, the most famous arena in the world. So to be able to be standing high atop MSG against the Rangers, I've got that one circled too. So I've got a few. I mean, every game obviously is going to be a big game, but those are the ones that I'm really looking forward to.
And obviously, since you were announced as becoming the Kraken's commentator, you've been doing a lot of media rounds and things. How have you found that side of it? And how have you how has your welcome to the NHL been, from fans and things like that?
It's been fun. It's been great. I did a little bit of the on-camera work when I was in Cincinnati. Obviously, as the PR director there, I was the team spokesperson. So I'd been on morning shows, I'd been on media appearances and all of that. So it hasn't changed that much in that regard. But it's been a lot of fun. It's obviously now you've got more eyes on you, and very much like play-by-play. I didn't take a class in media etiquette or media appearance 101, you know what I mean? So you kind of learn as you go. And but it's been very, very fun getting to represent the team in multiple capacities. We've got so much content planned in terms of different series and features that we're doing. We've got the expansion draft coming up. We've got free agency coming up. All of that stuff I'm going to be involved in. And it's been great. The fans have been so unbelievable and so warm and welcoming. And, people don't hold the fact that I'm not from Seattle against me. They've welcomed me with open arms. They've been so kind to my wife and have welcomed her in town as well. So it's been a very warm reception from the community. Obviously, the team has been remarkable. They've been unbelievable with their support of me and all of that. So I said it in the beginning, man, I could not have asked for a better start, a better place to get that NHL start. And I'm looking forward to it just getting that much better and continuing to roll along.
Yeah, I'll get real salty towards the Kraken around expansion draft time.
Yeah.
When it gets to the New York Rangers, don't take any of my favorites. Otherwise,
there's
going to be problems.
A lot of people have been like, "Yo, we're Kraken fans now, but wait till July. Like you could be losing a fan or two if you take player X." So we'll have to see. Well,
the cool thing is that when the Vegas Golden Knights came into fruition, a lot of UK fans gravitated to them because they may have started watching before there was a new team in there. So you kind of hop on someone who you like. Then the new team comes and you feel like, I'll go and join this journey. And I have no doubt that that's going to happen with the Kraken. Again, you see the impact the Golden Knights have globally. They have partnerships like the Vienna Capitals. They've set their stall out everywhere, kind of, quote unquote, like a virus. They've just got everywhere. And that has to be the goal for the Kraken as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, we not only want to be Seattle's team, we want to be Washington's team. We want to be the Pacific Northwest's team, Alaska's team. We want to make this go global. And we've actually have seen so much support from around the world already. We get pictures sent to our social media, emailed to folks every week of like, hey, hanging out here in Australia, hanging out in England, in Europe, in Asia, in Africa. We've got fans all over the world who have purchased Kraken stuff and are showing off their Kraken pride. So that's the goal. We want fans to join us from around the world, around the country. When we go on that first road trip to any other NHL city, we want as many Kraken fans in the stands as are the home fans. You know what I mean? So that's the goal there. And we've seen a really good reception so far of fans from around the world joining us on this journey. And
then you mentioned the new arena a few minutes ago. Tell me about that arena in Seattle. What is it like in there?
It's awesome. We've so this arena is unlike anything that the NHL definitely in the world has ever seen. We did a historical job here preserving the roof of that arena, a landmark, a national landmark. We preserved the roof. And our arena is all about conservation. It's all about minimizing that carbon footprint. It's all about being globally sustainable. We're using rainwater from the roof to resurface the ice. We are going to eliminate single-use plastics by 2024. We have a mobile app that's going to allow for paperless ticketing and everything through that. We are going to be completely reliant on electricity, so no natural gas at all in the building. We're going to have solar panels on the parking garage attached so we can use solar energy that way. I think 75% of our concessions, of our food, is going to be locally sourced within 200 miles of Seattle. So we really are trying to minimize that carbon footprint. We have a huge want for public transportation. So your game ticket will double as a transit pass. So you don't have to drive to the game. You can take the monorail. You can take public transportation down to a game by scanning your game ticket on your phone. So we have thought of everything. The arena is going to be unbelievable. I've seen, obviously, all the renderings, and we've got 800 people on site sometimes in a day, round the clock, working to get this building done. We just announced our first show announcement was the weekend. It's not going to be the first concert, but it was our first announcement. So we're still planning to have a major event in the fall when the building does open. And I don't know who that's going to be. Everyone's taking bets, like, who do you think it's going to be? But, it's so cool to see where this building has come from in my short time here, but hearing the stories of the people who were here when they broke ground to where it is now has been unbelievable.
And all those initiatives you talk about, they really embody the spirit of Seattle, don't they? Because it's a very progressive city, and it sounds like the Kraken is a progressive team for a progressive city.
Yes, and we, like I said, we're changing the way and the face of hockey, the way we do things, the way we take in games, the way we consume games and concerts, and we're changing the face of the game as well. Seattle is a very progressive town. It's a very diverse town. And you see that with our front office in the fact that this organization looks like Seattle. You have a goal of 45% women in our organization. We have a goal of 25% BIPOC, people of color, in our organization. And we're continuing to strive for and meet those goals and even exceed those goals in a lot of areas. So, again, I said it before, other teams in the NHL, it can be easy. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. The Team X, we've done this the same way for the last 75 years. Why would we change it? Well, the Kraken are committed to changing it from the start. And that commitment to diversity, that commitment to sustainability, to excellence, to community is something that I think is putting the NHL on notice. I think a lot of teams, a lot of folks from around the league have done an audit of what they are doing because of what we are doing. And I think it's really cool to be able to lead by example like we are.
And I don't want any spoilers on this, but I'm guessing there is quite the show planned for opening night.
There is quite the show planned. Unfortunately, I couldn't spoil it if I wanted to. I don't know what that plan is. But I think all you need to do is hang out on Twitter for a little bit, and you're going to see some fan, it should be this, it should be that. Do we do a rock and roll act? Do we do a local Seattle act? Or do we, man, I'm telling you, there is so much fodder and talk out there right now. But I couldn't spoil it even if I wanted to. But I do know that the plan is to have a giant, massive kickoff event for the building. I just don't know what or when that's going to be.
And as a diehard hockey fan yourself, what's your favorite aspect of the game? Do you like the goal scoring? Do you like the physicality? Do you like the fighting? Or are you like someone like everyone's obsessed with netminders? What's your favorite aspect of the game of hockey?
I think my favorite aspect of the game is just is the excitement level behind it. I think it's the fact that it's when you break a hockey game down, you're skating on, an eighth of an inch of metal with a stick in your hand. You're getting hit, you're getting chased. You have to stay on balance. And oh, by the way, you have to score goals. If you're a goalie, you're getting shot at by 100-mile-an-hour pucks every other shot. So I think it's the excitement, and it's just the overall beauty of the game. And, they obviously, soccer is the beautiful game, right? But I think there's so much beauty and grace and so many skills that go into the game of hockey. And I think that's my favorite part of it. I love a good highlight reel goal. I love a good lacrosse style Michigan goal. But I think it's just the beauty of the game and the fact that you have to multitask so much and you have to do so much in order to be successful. You can be a great passer. You can do amazing things with the puck. But if you can't skate, doesn't matter. Vice versa, you can be a world championship figure skater, but if you don't know how to play hockey, doesn't matter. So I think you have to have so many things come together in a perfect way in order for you to be successful.
There is just no other sport like it, is there? I know we're biased, we're inside the sport, but there's nothing like it.
So I was watching the Super Bowl and they were saying, everyone was like, man, he's so hard and they're so tired and that. I'm like, listen, the average NFL game has 11 minutes of action and the rest is a running clock standing around. You have to play every single second of 60 minutes in the NHL. Your shifts, and everyone's like, well, they're only out there for 90 seconds at a time. I'm like, all right, they're sprinting, essentially what the equivalent of sprinting for 90 consecutive seconds. They're getting hit. They're getting jostled. I would love to see the normal person run around at full speed for 90 seconds while also stick handling, while also being hit and checked and punched. And there's nothing. And again, we're biased, we're in it, so we understand it. But yeah, it's the most difficult sport to play. And I always tell folks, I said, listen, if you're not a hockey fan, I'll give you 2 periods and you'll fall in love with it. You don't even need the third. You'll fall in love with the game after 40 minutes.
That is such a true statement. And I think there are going to be a lot of people because of this who have fallen in love with the Seattle Kraken. I cannot thank you enough for your time today. But I do have one rule on this show. Now, there have been a lot of laughs throughout this, but it has to end on a laugh. Okay. So I'm going to need a story from your time in hockey that makes you smile when you look back at it.
Ooh, man. All right. So now, are we talking about like a laugh, like a funny story, or like a memorable, fond laugh?
Funny story.
A funny story. Okay. Again, I got plenty of those. Let's see here.
We might have to do a part 2 down the line then.
Oh, man. Okay, so I got one for you. So a couple years ago, I was at the ECHL All-Star Classic in Indianapolis, and I just told the story on my Twitter not too long ago. So I was in the press room before the game, and I was getting a cup of coffee, and it was early after the morning skate. There was a special guest who was supposed to be at this event, and I'm getting a cup of coffee. And when you go up to you're up to the table and you're just like fixing your cup of coffee, and there's someone next to you like, hey, what's going on? How you doing? Not really paying attention. So I walk up and was like, hey man, what's going on? How you doing? I'm fixing my cup of coffee and not really paying attention. And he was like, oh, I'm good, just hanging out. I was like, all right. And then I look up. It's Wayne Gretzky. And so he was the special guest for the ECHL All-Star Classic. And so he started his pro career in Indianapolis playing for the Racers, and he was back to drop the puck. And it was the introductory press conference. So I was like there that morning, and I was going to hear Wayne Gretzky speak. And I'm like, all right, cool, sweet, no problem. Like, yeah, I'll check it out. And it's Wayne Gretzky. Why wouldn't I be there? So, yeah, I'm just getting my coffee. Like, what's going on, man? How are things? Yeah. Oh, good. I'm like, oh, cool. Didn't even know it was him. And, like, I felt so bad because, like, it's Wayne Gretzky. So, of course, I'm like, oh, my God, Mr. Gretzky, how are you? Like, a pleasure to meet you. Like, that's how it's supposed to be. But I treated Wayne Gretzky like Bill from accounting. Like, hey, what's going on? Hey, how's your day going? Like, but people were like, that's honestly the best way to do it because it takes the nerves away. You know what I mean? So, and again, I highly doubt he remembers me or remembers that story, but I remember that story. And I still cringe a little bit whenever I think about it. But I think that was my memorable, hey, how's it going? How you doing? So I felt bad I didn't give him the respect he deserved initially in that moment. But then obviously he was like, "Oh my God, nice to meet you, sir. I'm so excited you're here." And like I flipped the switch pretty fast, but that was probably my memorable moment.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that story, and thank you so much for, as we mentioned earlier, trusting us to tell your story to our fan base. So thank you so much for being on the show, Everett.
Hey, Daniel, thank you so much for having me, man. I really appreciate it, and best of luck with everything moving forward. I'm looking forward to cheering on the Panthers when you guys are back on the ice. So thanks for having me, man. This has been a blast.
Like any activity in life, it's all about preparation. So start this year with a review of your finances. 2021 is the year to make things happen, so let's do it together. At the Nottingham, along with our trusted partners, there's not much we can't help you with when it comes to financial planning. From independent financial advice and prepaid funeral plans to will writing and estate planning services, we've got it covered. So call your nearest branch today to arrange a free initial meeting to discuss your savings, pensions and investments.